For the underdogs, I'm an underdog. I've been through it all, I could never fall. You know I stand tall, I be on the road. When I'm speaking through the mic.
What's good, you guys? Welcome back to For the Underdogs podcast. I hope this episode finds you well. Hope everybody out there is having a great start to the spring and really enjoying themselves. I know it's been a little bit since we tapped in together, but I've been doing a lot of work on the podcast, been doing a lot of work on some other things, speaking academy that I'm participating in, trying to fine tune that skill and really just get better at something that I'm passionate about. So yeah, I hope this episode finds you guys well, and I think you'll really enjoy it. I'm super excited to talk about it today. So lately, for some reason, this season of 2025 for me has been centered around a lot of networking. I've been to a lot of events. I've been meeting a lot of dope people, really cool people, really interesting people. And I don't know what it is, but the amount of people that I've actually been introduced to or reconnected to through the podcast has been really persistent to start the year. It's a beautiful thing. Like, don't get me wrong, super grateful for, the connections that I've been making. But within that, something I've noticed and picked up on is it's always interesting to see exactly how people introduce you to individuals that they want to connect you with. And I'm wondering who else pays attention to that. I can't be the only one. I hope I'm not the only one, because I think that there's a lot of value in seeing how people feel about you. So when I've been connected via email or in person, I've noticed that, man, there's some people that really think highly of me, the person I am, the way they introduce me and how they go about connecting me. There's a difference in when it's like, hey, I want to connect you with this person, you guys take it from here, as opposed to when they put all the fixings on it, and it kind of makes you feel good about yourself. But just given how they introduce you, I think says a lot. And it's had me wondering, how come I don't always have that internal dialogue with myself? Why isn't my own self-dialogue matching what others feel about me when they introduce me? And it's not that I don't believe that I am that person that they've talked me up to be. I think it's just our internal critics playing devil's advocate, in my opinion. So this episode is for all my people out there that battle with the internal dialogue, that self-critic. But on a deeper level, this episode, I really want it to be centered around our self-perception versus the external perception and the role our internal dialogue plays within that. I feel like oftentimes the way we experience ourselves is a lot different than the way others experience us. This can be in a good or bad way. I'm sure we've all had the experience of hearing something negative someone may have said about us from a character standpoint, and immediately we're kind of sideswiped by the comment because you know for a fact that your character is not what they've talked it up to be or what they've said it was at that point in time. But on the flip side of that, what about the meaningful things people say about us? What about the compliments on our character or the type of person that we are? What about those things? What about the times that we walk into a room and somebody's super happy to see you because you bring a good energy? You know, they love the vibe that you bring. Like, how come we don't pay attention to those things to kind of give us confirmation that whatever our internal critic is saying isn't necessarily true? I want to be really clear with this because I think some people can take it the wrong way. I'm not saying that outside validation is what matters, because we all know that to really be fulfilled and truly be happy, that has to come from ourselves, like internally within our own mind, body. We have to truly be happy within ourselves in order to feel that feeling. But sometimes I think in circles of people that you value their opinion, you value the way that they think about things, like the way they speak about you can be used as confirmation if you're having a hard time dealing with your internal critic. Something I've done in this process that has really helped me, speaking in terms of this platform, the podcast, when I do have those times that my internal critic is being much louder than what I wanted to. Everyone knows when you start something, whether it's a business, a platform, a company, whatever the case may be, you are going to have those moments of doubt, whether you're just getting it off the ground or you're in the middle of that process and you're so close to it being an actual thing and you're pushing your product, you're pushing your brand, whatever the case may be. Those tough times can be periods where the internal critic can kind of take over if you're not being careful. And to be real, it can deter you away from pursuing and really pushing this startup thing that you're doing, because maybe you don't have the momentum, maybe you don't have the crowd behind you or the energy behind you to make this a thing. You just feel like it's you. So it's essentially you're battling yourself in terms of pushing your brand, and it can almost make you pivot. Obviously, my internal critic hasn't won in that category, but what do I do when that sound is getting louder? Something I've done is I started screenshotting a lot of the feedback that I get about the podcast. And in times of conflict, I go to that album and I read through the things that people have sent me to flip that narrative in my mind. It's not that I'm validating myself by outside things. What I feel like I'm doing is giving my mind a dose of what true reality is. What are people actually saying? Or what do I actually know about this podcast? What do I actually know about myself? What have I put out there? You know, a big thing in the NFL is like, you are what you put on tape. I'm speaking in terms of our mind and how our mind tries to play that trick that we may not be doing enough, or we may not be focused enough, or we may not be good enough in whatever area. But in reality, if you have showed up every day and you have made an effort to do this and that, and you've been focused, like, look at that in terms of where you're going instead of what your internal critic is trying to tell you on the flip side. What I've kind of chalked it up to is, this is my realization. I've realized that the internal noise that I deal with from my own mind, it's literally just that. It's noise. If you deal with that noise, but separately your actions have shown you that you're not the closest thing to those negative thoughts or those negative feelings, those negative emotions, then why is it so hard for us to ignore it? Why can't we just look at the factual things that are happening in our lives? Think about a time that you've been up for an opportunity. Maybe it's an interview, or you've got a big meeting for something you've developed, a business meeting, a proposal. It can be anything. When that interviewer or negotiator asks you, give me your strengths, or tell me why this product is something I should consider, you, knowing yourself, knowing the things to say, your strengths, like why you're the best fit, why you deserve this opportunity, that's literally you. Like those things that you're speaking about, those things that you rattle off without even without even having to go to the drawing board are you. So all of that being said, it got me thinking, if this is reality, why have I had a hard time with my internal dialogue affecting my self-perception? For one, I think we've all heard that we are shaped by our experiences in life. For me, one of the things I've noticed is my failures have been broadcasted externally. By that, I mean, given the career path I took, obviously playing in the NFL, anytime I failed or I didn't make a roster or I got beat, gave up a sack, missed a block, whatever the case may be, I didn't live up to my own expectations. Anytime those things happened, it was broadcasted outside of me. Outside of me just feeling the emotion of, obviously, I don't want to mess up and I want to make every play, want to make every team, every roster, whatever the case is. Outside of me feeling that emotion of not doing that thing, it was always on social media or ESPN, whoever the beat writer is for a certain team, they're the first to tweet it out. I feel like within that happening internally, it allowed my internal dialogue to think that whenever you fail, it's always broadcasted or people always have an opinion if you fail. So being shaped by my experiences of falling short in some areas allowed my internal critic to think that the failures are who you really are, when in reality, there is no failure there. Like, just because I've been shaped by my experience of having failed and thinking that because these people said I failed, that doesn't mean that it's the real truth. So you can imagine going into new ventures, new things, with that internal critic ruling over your self-perception. And we don't need that, in my opinion. I feel like we would be better off without having that loud noise or that internal critic making things harder than it already is. And so I want to give you guys a few things that can help that process. Some of the things that have helped me quiet the noise, like I said earlier. I just want to give you guys some of those tools that I think have been helpful. The first one I would say is we got to fact check our thoughts. Like, ask yourself, is this the reality of what my mind is telling me? Is this true? And then go back to the evidence. Like I said, for me, it's been, depending on what phase I'm looking at, if I'm looking at the podcast or if I'm looking at a personal phase, I have evidence that my internal critic is just being the devil's advocate in whatever I'm trying to accomplish. Maybe it's doing its job because it's keeping me accountable, but I can't allow the noise of my internal critic to supersede what is the true reality. So go back to fact checking what is actually real versus what is just being said. The next one I would say, which is big, is asking yourself, would you talk to one of your peers or one of your loved ones the way that you talk to yourself? 100% of the time, usually the answer is no, so don't allow that internal critic to have that voice as well. I think something that just came to mind as I was speaking that is really powerful is figuring out what voice the internal critic is. Is it your voice? Is it an old coach's voice? Is it an old boss's voice? Is it a family member's voice? Because that can also open up another level of healing that we need to go through. Maybe it's a conversation with that person, or maybe it's an experience that you had with that person and somehow it's stuck with you, that now their voice is the one that's telling you, oh, you haven't done enough or you're not good enough. Like, those are another sense of information that we can dive deeper into with our therapist or with someone that we trust. That's something that just popped into my head, is like, whose voice is it that you're hearing? Something else that I would say that's helped me a lot is affirmations. Like, you got to challenge that internal critic, challenge that person, challenge that voice, because why wouldn't we want to challenge it? You know, sometimes that noise can be so loud that if you don't challenge it, you have to look at the mind as almost a game. There's a reason why they call it mind games. You have to look at it in that sense, and you have to trick your mind sometimes into learning who is actually controlling it. Because if we don't control our minds, there's no telling where it'll take us. So there's times that you have to play that game with your mind of using the affirmations to say, no, this is what it really is. Another thing that I think is super helpful, and I always go back to this, but I think the people that we're around is one of the things that can drive your internal self-critic up. Do you feel small around certain people? Do you feel like your self-critic turns up when you're around people that you're uncomfortable around? Like, get around people that your self-critic begins to be silent when you're around them. Get around people that speak highly of you or build you up or allow you to feel like you're chasing something, because I know from experience, when I've been around people that don't match where I'm trying to go, that internal self-critic or that noise begins to be heightened for whatever reason. So I think that's something that's super important. The last thing I would say is be accountable to yourself. That's part of the evidence or the fact checking that I talked about. If you show up every day and you're a good person and you put your best foot forward and you're doing all these things that you know for a fact give you real evidence of who you actually are, then there's no doubt that you'll have the real evidence to check your internal critic when it begins to be too loud. So yeah, man, that's been my experience with my self-perception versus external perception and the role that our internal dialogue plays within that. I think my hope for this conversation is that we start to really embrace who we are at our core and not allow the external things or the self-critic to affect our self-perception when it's all said and done. Our self-perception is something that we constantly have to refine and keep building, especially if you're chasing after things that challenge you, because you're going to have those lumps and those losses, or what we call losses. I don't really think they are losses if you're chasing something, because not everyone's doing that. But you're going to experience those ups and downs, those emotions that come with doing something great or doing something that not everyone else is doing. So give yourself that chance to battle the internal critic, to battle the self-perception that you aren't doing enough. And I think it'll all pan out and help us in the long run. So I appreciate you guys listening to this episode of For the Underdogs podcast. I hope everybody found it helpful. These are just my thoughts that I wanted to share with you guys, because it's something that I think a lot of people deal with, but they don't want to say it. So appreciate you guys listening, and I'll talk to you soon.
For the underdogs, I'm an underdog. I've been through it all. I could never fall. You know I stand tall. I be on the road when I'm speaking through the mic. God protect my soul.